Hello, and thank you for spending this time having a conversation with me. Today we're going to talk about the importance of practice analysis, knowing where you are before you venture off to try to reach the next level or make significant changes. I was recently at a national 3-day meeting with other chief executive officers. Each of the CEOs there had won an award of some type, and that's why they were at this conference. Lots of presentations, great education, lots of dinners, and lots of fun time. And fun time in these kind of conferences often means chatting with people. You never know who you're going to meet, and it was quite instructive, and I learned quite a bit in between the presentations as well. Well, one of the CEOs that I had dinner with is what's called a turnaround chief executive officer. He gets hired for no more than 3 years at a time, takes a distressed company, they bring him in, he turns it around, he puts it in better health, and then he leaves and turns it over to a CEO who will carry it from there, and he's on to his next activity. When I talked to him about what he does, I was very curious. I said, "What is the first thing you do?" He said, "I spend a lot of time analyzing." He said, "The mistake that many CEOs make is they will actually go off and start making changes and cutting expenses and cutting out departments and laying off people without ever knowing where they really were." He'll spend sometimes 3 to 4 months simply analyzing the business. He says he pretends he's an outside consultant, and that one of his biggest challenges is getting people to tell him the truth because everybody wants to spin the information they're giving him. Well, this relates back exactly to my feelings about dental practices. Not that you're distressed or need a turnaround, but there are a lot of practices that are flat or even in a bit of decline based on the economic conditions of your area. And what I always recommend is before you run off to make changes, significant changes that can be costly, time-consuming, sometimes you're working extra hard, before you go down that road, analyze your practice. I've watched our analysts year after year visit 200 offices per analyst each year. I've seen the information that comes back. I love to look at it on the findings of the analysts when they go into practices for their one-day practice production on-site analysis. And I have to tell you that I think it's phenomenal to know where you are, to do an analysis before you start making changes. For example, is the problem with the staff? Is the staff properly trained? Do they have the capability? What skill sets do they need? Is the problem that you need more new patients? Now, everybody tells me, any client who comes into Levine Group, and we have hundreds and hundreds joining us every year, every client that's not busy enough or doesn't have production where they want it thinks that more new patients will simply solve the problem. But the truth is, it might not be your new patients, because we start by looking at targets. So we analyze targets. Are 98% of your patients currently scheduled, or are 20 or 30% overdue? Do you even have enough hygiene appointments if all the hygiene patients came in? What if 40% of the active patients and 60% of the new patients went through initial therapy? Would you have enough appointments then? Probably not. Are 99% of your fees collected, and therefore you are collecting almost the exact amount that you're producing? Are your patients active or inactive? Any patient over 18 months is what we call inactive. And here's a brand new target we recently established. Within 90 days, we want to reactivate 85% of all of the inactive patients between 18 months and 3 years. You've still got time, but once they join another office, then it's going to be too late. So there are wonderful opportunities if you understand the targets, and this is part of the analysis. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities? And what are the dangers you may be facing? Today, we have competitors and non-traditional competitors. We have competitors we've never thought about before. A national organization opening a practice in your area, a new type of technology that another dentist is using extremely well to attract patients. These are non-traditional competitors that we don't think about. So practice analysis is not a simple or light activity. It really is an analysis. It's an analysis based on targets, numbers, staff evaluation, and even doctor leadership. And in terms of doctor leadership, don't be afraid of what we might find, because I believe most doctors receive no training for leadership in school and have very little time to be leaders. In fact, when I teach leadership, it's much more about what I call being a leader in the seconds and minutes, not in the days and weeks. Because dentists don't have days and weeks to train people to be a leader. They have to do it literally in between patients. And there's a way to make that work without frustration, and your team becomes trained and excited and motivated by following the systems on an amazing basis. So the reality is that when it comes to understanding analysis, that's the place to start. There's a saying that if you don't know where you're going, any boat will get you there. You don't know where you're going to end up, you might be very unhappy, but you will get there. So we always begin by recommending practice analysis. And to tie this back to the turnaround chief executive officer that I met, here's one of the experts who's been doing this for years very successfully. He tells me that every time he's ready to make the change at 3 years, he has between 8 and 10 offers of companies that want him to come in. And what does he do first? Analysis. If he spends 3 to 4 months analyzing a company, isn't it worth at least a day for you to do the same thing? By the way, for those of you who are interested, please spend more time on our website. There is a practice potential on-site analysis that you can learn about under the Consulting tab, or just hang out under the Resource Center tab and get lots more information because we built it for you. Thank you for being here.